Justin Fields is going to get into his second season as the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Last season, he had a pretty underwhelming rookie season, and it wasn't really his fault. He was set up to fail by the back play calling on the behalf of Matt Nagy. The Bears didn't really have a good offensive line, so that didn't really do him any favors. So now, the Chicago Bears bring in some fresh blood when it comes to their coaching staff. Matt Eberflus is the new head coach. And Luke Getsy is going to be the offensive coordinator this season for the Bears. He's going to be the man in charge of helping Justin Fields develop this season. And I like Luke Getsy. This is somebody who has been on the Green Bay Packers staff, and we don't really know too much about his scheme. However, I do think that we're going to see RPOs implemented into this offense a good bit, which is something that Justin Fields is really good at. And a lot of people in the national media have said that the Bears have surrounded Justin Fields with little to no talent at all. And I don't really think that that is entirely true. You may not have a lot of big names on this offense, but you definitely do have some guys who should be able to produce, such as Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney can be a legitimate number one wide receiver in this league. You have Byron Pringle, which Byron Pringle may not be a impressive name, but I mean, you can do a lot worse than Byron Pringle. You have rookie wide receiver out of Tennessee, Velus Jones, who I am really excited to see what he does this year. He's somebody that I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking when it comes to rookie wide receivers. If you're looking for a rookie wide receiver who could pop off right away, who was not a day one pick, it could be Velus Jones, because he's going to have a good opportunity to end up getting one of the starting spots. He also has really good speed, so he's going to be a really good deep threat. And Justin Fields is pretty good when it comes to throwing the deep ball as well, as long as he's able to get legitimate time to throw the deep ball. But with the offensive line situation the way it is, the Chicago Bears are probably going to put a lot of emphasis on getting the ball out fast and quick, which is why I think that the RPOs are probably going to be heavily implemented into this offense. You're probably going to see a lot of Justin Fields in the run game with read options and design quarterback runs. And you're also going to see a lot of David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, which I think that is a really good running back duo. And they're going to rely heavily on the run game this year, because let's face it, Chicago has to get into games where they have to win by throwing the football. They're going to be in a lot of trouble. But there is a sleeper player on this offense that not too many people are talking about. And that's tight end Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet was really solid for Chicago last year. He caught 60 receptions for 612 yards, and he averaged 10 yards per reception. And I think that he's going to be in for a monster season. If you're somebody who's watching this and you play a lot of fantasy football, target Cole Kmet late in your draft, because he's going to be the second most reliable option in this offense behind Darnell Mooney. And I think that Luke Getsy is going to design a lot of plays with him being the primary or secondary option and Justin Fields' progressions. So we're going to see a lot of Cole Kmet this year. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing Cole Kmet have a breakout season and end up being a Pro Bowler. So for Justin Fields, how far is he going to go in his development this offseason? Because we already know with the current offensive line situation, he's going to get hit a lot. And normally, when you have a quarterback that's going through a coaching change, it's kind of a little bit of hindrance in their development, because they're learning a new playbook, they're learning a new system. However, I think that this is going to be one of the rare occasions where a coaching change actually benefits a young quarterback, because Matt Nagy didn't really know what he was doing when it came to calling the plays. And there were a lot of times where he would end up calling the plays, then next week giving the play calling up, and then end up taking the play calling back. The guy didn't know what he wanted to do. So for Justin Fields, I think when he's at his best is when he's able to roll outside the pocket, using play action, and then also when you're able to get him involved in the RPO game. Now, Justin Fields, even though his rookie season may not have been the greatest statistically, I do feel like he had some solid performances there. Coming from a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, when the Chicago Bears played the Steelers, Justin Fields was really good. He was actually scaring me because there was a point in that game when I thought that the Bears were going to end up being able to pull off the upset, but the Steelers were able to pull away and win that game. But I was really impressed with how Justin Fields handled himself against a really solid Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So for Justin Fields, if he ends up developing the way that many Bears fans envision that he should, I think that you're probably looking at somebody who should be around 18, 19 passing touchdowns, probably have 7 interceptions on the season. And I give you those low numbers simply for the fact that the Bears don't really have a lot of phenomenal talent in the passing game. They're going to have a lot of cap space next year to be able to improve that, however. But this season, I think that this is going to be an offense that they're going to pick and choose their shots wisely, because you don't want to put Justin Fields in a lot of situations where he has to drop back and have to wait for a lot of routes downfield to develop behind that offensive line. And the thing with the offensive line is that you do have some pieces there that do have a lot of promise, such as Tevin Jenkins, Larry Borum there at left tackle. So those are guys who do have high ceilings, but you don't know if they're going to end up reaching their ceilings this season. They were more viewed as project players in a sense, even though Tevin Jenkins was a guy who we all thought, based off the Brett Coleman video, could end up stepping in and being one of the best offensive tackles as a rookie right away. But he still has some ways to go. And with a new coaching staff in play, most likely the offensive line should be able to improve. But really, when it comes to Justin Fields, I think he's going to be pretty solid this season. I think that he's going to rely a lot on his mobility to be able to extend plays, give wide receivers extra time to get open, but also he's going to be heavily involved in the run game. I expect him to have pretty much 500 or 600 rushing yards this season and probably 6-7 rushing touchdowns. So overall, I think that Justin Fields will be okay this year. I do think that there still are going to be some growing pains here and there, but with the Chicago Bears still being a team that's in a little bit of a rebuild, I think that that's fair to expect Justin Fields to have some off games. But for the most part, I think that he should be pretty solid this year. And I'm going to be excited to see what the Bears can do when they're finally able to get a fresh offseason and they're able to finally be able to spend money and improve at all the positions that they need to improve at to give Justin Fields the best chance of being able to succeed. So give me your thoughts on how good you feel Justin Fields is going to be in 2022 in his second season starting for the Bears. I appreciate you guys for listening to this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. Make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast on all podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts from. The JT Sports Podcast is available.